Hey everybody, this is Retro Challenge Gamer, and I'm going to be working through a post-commentary of my super world that I created for Super Mario Maker 2. Now, since 30 seconds at a time was not going to cut it anymore, I decided to get a dedicated capture card finally that could work with the Switch, and so here we are. So I plan to just initially play through the whole game as itself, not revealing any secrets or anything. And then I'll do later reveal all the secrets and stuff like that and do perfect runs, if you will. So as I said, this is a post commentary, and I'll be dealing with it as we go through the game. So for the first level, Serene Hills, I didn't really want to overload the player with much in terms of difficulty. It was kind of standard fare, but there was some design decisions I made early on in this game, in the super world, if you will, that pretty much stood the test of time, and I continued these design decisions through the remainder of the levels. Like, for example, I introduced lifts early on in the level, and then without much danger. Then I introduced a spring in the level, again without much danger, and then I introduced lifts with no ground underneath, and that was danger. And then now this time I introduce a danger in the form of a Koopa Troopa, but a switch here too. So it's like I escalate the problem that you have to work through as you go through the level, and then I combine the two, as you will see here. Now you have a spring and lifts over a pit, and now you have to use both, and then I end the level. So this type of design decision where I introduce an element and then I give you an upgraded challenge of the element, and then I mix the two together, that's kind of the design as I was going through the rest of these stages. Now, this gets mixed up when you get to like World 6, 7, 8, and stuff like that, when all these gimmicks have already been introduced to you. But until that time, I had a lot of leeway to work with, and so the first level, not much home to write about. Okay, so I was actually going to only put like maybe 1, 2 toad houses in every world. But my son, he was with me when we designed all these levels, he was just like, no, we're going to put all 3 toad houses in every single world. And I was like, okay. He was adamant, man. He was totally adamant getting all 3 toad houses. So you're going to have more extra lives than you know what to do with if you're good at this game. So we move into the second one, Swing Chasm Abyss. So you can kind of already tell just by the name what one of the gimmicks is that I use here. So in classic Mario fashion, there's an entry room, and that delivers you directly into the actual underground area itself. So now we have moving track-based lifts. Since I've already introduced them over a pit in the first level, the lifts that is, I don't really have to give you a safe range to work with. Now this is the first swinging claw that is introduced with danger, no ground. So I've introduced both elements now, a second time actually, for the moving lifts. And so far the enemy lineup isn't too terribly difficult. You can see a couple secrets just out of reach. Now we get, I made a little goof here. I actually should be taking the upper route. But now we get to combine the two, swinging claws and lifts. And that pretty much ends the level. I've done what I accomplished to do and taught you how to work through several obstacles, and now it's time to end the level. So my inspiration going through this entire super world is actually Super Mario Bros. 3, which I recently played before I started making the super world. And I realized that there was only 1, maybe 2 power-ups max for every level in Super Mario World. They did not overflow you with power-ups like some of my other previous levels I've made I did. So I decided maybe 1, 2 power-ups max. Sometimes it had more depending on if I felt the level needed it. But I felt that added more challenge. And the second thing I noticed was each level was fairly short. It didn't outstay its welcome, and I was like, I want to combine those 2 design decisions together. Very few power-ups and short levels, as short as I can make them. So which is good for speedrunning. Now, my first ghost house. I actually had fun designing a lot of these ghost houses. So this is your standard ghost house where it's like a bunch of doors and you got to figure out where to go and stuff like that. So in terms of just innovative design, this isn't too unique of a ghost house, is what I would say. So I introduced the new Mecha Koopas. So this whole Super World is built after the last 3.0 update of Super Mario World. So now you have a power switch. What to do with it? Well, if you've been paying attention on the way towards this area... Oh, forget that. I made a mistake. You didn't see that secret yet. I'll reveal that later in another video, but if you go back to this area, if you recognize, there was a spotted outline of a door. And that gets us to the midpoint. And so now we do a little more, I wouldn't say complex door puzzle, it's kind of very simple. The problem with Super Mario Maker 2 is that it has arbitrary limits. And one of those limits is 4 doors per world, main world and sub-world. And unfortunately, that limits some of the things you can do. Like here, I needed 2 doors, one door which was a red herring, and then another door which was, how to say, is the correct door which leads to Boom Boom. But there was also a locked door which you get for getting the 3 pink coins. This is the red herring door, don't choose it. And then I also needed a door to get out of Boom Boom's boss room and move on to the rest of the level. So there's my 4 doors already, so I couldn't really make a maze of doors here, which is unfortunate. I could only make a maze of 2 doors. One to the boss, and one to earlier in the room. There wasn't much to work with the arbitrary limits of this engine. Now, this was another design decision I made. For every world, there would be 5 levels. The 3rd level is always the mid-boss, the mini-boss level, if you will. In this case, the ghost house, you fight Boom Boom. And then the last level, the 5th level, of course, is the final boss level of the world. So I decided to keep that design decision going throughout all 5 worlds. And now we move on to the 3rd and final house, which I believe is the pitch? The baseball pitch? Yes, catch and win. This one I've discovered after playing this like 5 or 6 times that the sound effect that you hear tells you exactly what's being fired if the visual doesn't tell you. Like the visual will tell you there that it's a charge up. If you hear that descending tone, that means it's going to be coming down to your feet and you don't have to move at all. So the sound effect as well as the visual will tell you what's coming up next. And you get a bountiful of 1-ups if you get a perfect. So that's a pretty good mini game alongside Match and Win. And now we get to water levels. I don't know. Creating water levels has always been a hard thing. Creating them interesting is even harder. Okay, so I wanted to have a brief moment where we have, jumping cheeps to kind of give you an idea that, hey, some water levels are coming up here. And there's another 10 coin block. They're placed in all sorts of areas. I wanted 10 coin blocks to be in areas where they required a little bit of risk to get. If you wanted all those 10 coins, you're going to have to invite some risk. So there's an enemy coming at you, or you're going to have to dodge something while you're trying to get all 10 coins. I wanted every 10 coin to be some level of danger. It's not required at all to get any of the 10 coins. It's not going to be part of my perfect runs, and I'll explain those later when we get to those videos. But for right now, I just put a couple 10 coin blocks in every level, like maybe 1, 2 at most in every level. I didn't want to overload the player with 10 coin blocks hidden all over the place. It just didn't seem to fit the overall design aesthetic of what I was going for with the Super World. Now if you made it this far and you've got yourself fire flower, you pretty much have a clear path towards the end of the level. You can just kill all these spinies and go about your day. See how easy it becomes? Now, if you don't have the fire flower and you have to start at the midpoint there, the last part of the level becomes a little bit more difficult as you try and swim through all the spikes, the spikies. Overall, pretty easy level. Most of World 5 is fairly easy.
Oh yeah, Mario time!
Now we get to Stage 5. Stage 5, in my opinion, is where the game starts its small step in difficulty in trying to take you down. So, one of the comments, and I think you'll see this at the end of the level, actually said that the level was actually perfectly designed for speedrunners or people who know what they're doing. Oh, here's my one death. This is what I'm going to do. I'm also going to show at the beginning of any level from here on out, if I have deaths during that level when I was recording this, I'll show you all the deaths, and then I'll show you the perfect run through as as through editing. So I hope you enjoy that new format. But yeah, one of the comments said, for people who know what they're doing and how to play, they enjoy the type of shortcuts skilled players can do to speed up the play of this level. Now, another design decision I made, you saw there was a platform, you saw there's springs now, you saw there was a swinging claw. Every aspect, every gimmick that you have seen in the past 4 levels, I bring back. I bring back for the final challenge of that world, and I totally missed that jump. So the goal was like, bring me back all the gimmicks as one final test to the player. Can you now survive and work through all these gimmicks in the stage, kind of coming through all at once? You saw that split there. That was because I decided the first part of the run was good. The second part, I just cut to the actual run, spliced it to the actual run where I actually beat the boss. The first time I died, as you saw. So yeah, I thought this design decision of just reintroducing everything you've learned about before was just, I don't know, it seems like a very Mario thing to do. Now I wanted every boss to be different, difficult. In this case, there was Potobos, which seemed natural to the environment, and then I introduced one extra element. The little bumper in the middle, which actually kind of trips you up quite a bit if you're not careful. But I didn't want to go further than that. Later bosses go way more crazy than this. But being the first boss, I didn't want him to be too tough. Tricky, but not tough. Now this was just for fun, this extra little bonus at the end of all the final boss stages. You get to face him again, but huge. But you can just jump over him in classic Bowser fashion and drop the axe on him. And that is the design aesthetic that I will pretty much be keeping for the rest of the Super World. And I thought it worked out for the most part, and based on the number of likes and the number of plays that this world has gotten, and all the notifications I'm getting and good responses and comments, I think this design aesthetic has actually worked out. So now we move on to the second world, which is the desert world, which makes sense to me. And we get our first airship level. Oh, we're going to talk about that in the next video. But until then, thank you for starting to watch this series with me, and I'll see you later.